Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed part one. We're going to be starting part two of the tour of MAPLEWALK. This is the second piece of property of the garden. When we moved in, and we will see the property where our house is in a few minutes, when we moved in, we were backyard gardeners who had no intention of expanding our garden.
Let alone buying two more properties.
Let alone buying two more properties. But in our naivete as 30-year-olds who were buying a house, we loved the house and the lot, and we didn't bother to notice that all the water in the world ran toward our house.
Oh, no.
So all the neighbors ran toward our house, and this lot, with a lot of elevation change, runs right toward our house. So we looked at each other and said, we can't let anyone ever build back there, or what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So we did a little research and found that this was the only vacant lot in the neighborhood. This is a 1960s neighborhood. And the owner of the property actually lived next door to the property. So we sent him a letter saying, we're the new neighbors, glad to be in the neighborhood, and if you ever decide to sell the house, we would like first refusal, and we'll pay you $500 now for the right of first refusal. Never heard a word. But when we bought this, we literally had never walked the property, because every time we tried to walk back in here, we fell into sinkholes. So as soon as we closed on it, we decided we're going to start clearing it, and we started clearing in the corner down there. And lo and behold, we quickly found out why we fell into sinkholes. There's a storm drain that runs through the property, and it had separated.
Oh.
So the county had to come in and relay the storm drain. And the storm drain runs down that path. So that got repaired before we did, and we took 100 trees out of here.
Oh my gosh.
Now,
and you'd never even know, because
there's
it's
still plenty of
a
trees.
full woodland. Yeah.
Now, when I say trees, some of them had a caliper of 1 inch.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still.
They were trees, but they were small. So we did that, and one of my favorite stories to tell on my wife, I am married to someone who is also, we kid that she's an avid gardener and I'm an obsessive gardener. But she and I were clearing this property, and this is over 20 years ago now, and we hired a couple of Latino laborers, and this was before there were a lot of them in Charlotte. These guys, the only tools they brought with them were machetes. They didn't have their own truck or anything. They showed up, but we were cutting things down, hauling them up to the street to be hauled off by the city. And my wife is walking up this hill, which is quite a grade, carrying a log, and she's going to deposit up there. And one of the men turned to her and said, "You're not big, but you're strong like bull." And she swears that's one of the nicest things a guy has ever said to her.
I agree.
So, we couldn't have done any of this unless we had done it together. So, no boulders were in here.
Well, they probably really help with the flow of water.
Well, they do. There was already a drop off here, but we wanted to accentuate it. And Johnny Mazengill, who is a boulder designer, did all this boulder work over here.
Oh, nice.
He does jobs in Canada. He's done all our boulder work. These stones, we dug big holes. That crescent-shaped stone, 2/3 of it's in the ground. And this is the camellia that I drove up to see David to get.
Marge Miller.
Marge Miller. I already had a few, but I was having trouble finding more. And I'm going to let these cover this area.
It's the perfect ground cover camellia.
Yeah, it's a great little camellia. So, and one of the things that, and I mention this to people when they come through the garden, I said, people remember that garden tags are often created by people who live in Oregon. I said, sedum, if you go and read, it says full sun. And I said, this guy is in 3/4 shade. And it's just as happy as it can be. And it brightens this area up.
I wholeheartedly agree. And you know, a lot of these sedums are alpine natives. So in the heat of the southeast, they really can't take our full sun humid conditions. It's the same thing with like sempervivum, the hens and chicks. They melt in the summertime. But if you grow them in some shade, they actually perform so much better.
Here's my new experiment.
I love these. Are these Florida Sunshine?
Florida Sunshine. Look how much shade I've got in here.
And they look amazing, and I really like it with the arum.
So I'm to see how they do, but I think they're going to do okay.
They look like they're doing great.
And so if that'll really brighten this area up.
Well, and that, I mean, with the Elysium here and the sedum there, it just brings this chartreuse. Yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
Because everything down through here are maples. Starting here with one of my favorites, and you'll hear me say this a dozen times, but this is Fascination. And I love Fascination for a number of reasons, but one is I just love the form. This tree is gorgeous 12 months out of the year. And when there's snow or ice on this tree, photographers love to come in and photograph it. And it's also a fun tree to point out to people, to show them the graft, also to show root flare and how root flare can be a real beauty part of the tree.
You can follow Tom on Instagram at MAPLEWalk Garden, and you can see what all these maples looked like literally a week ago.
This little maple I love because how tiny the leaves are.
Yeah, look at those. Oh, that's so cute.
And it's got a very interesting leaf form and really pretty fall color.
Wow, that is great.
That tip, it's 14 feet across.
This is amazing. And look, it's a high graft. Wow. Now, what variety is this? Okay.
Yatsubusa.
You know you're a Japanese maple enthusiast when these cultivar names roll off your tongue like they do.
Oh, this has been a lot of this, the maples in here are a result of pure luck. When I bought many of these are 20 years old. I didn't know much of anything. 20 years ago, keep in mind, we didn't have the internet information that we have today. My source was the Vertrees book on Japanese maple that was the Bible for American Japanese maples forever. And what little I knew from that book. And when I bought maples, I tried to space different kinds, and I had no idea this was ever going to look like this.
I'm not sure that a book would have instructed you on it either.
Oh, and if you go online and read about it, it doesn't talk about 14 feet across.
It's the most spectacular thing I've ever witnessed.
It's a cool tree.
It's like a pancake.
Now, I have to prune it. I did some pruning today. I shouldn't have been doing it this early, but it takes me about 3 hours every year to prune it, and I have to do it on my back, and I do it a half hour at a time, and I take a lot of it off the crossing branches, again for airflow, and one of the things I tell people about Japanese maples, please don't buy Japanese maples if you don't want to prune them, because they just become big bushes and they're not happy, and you're not going to be happy with them. And pruning them is not a daunting task. There are plenty of YouTube videos telling you how to do basic pruning, and the trees are very forgiving. And if you make a mistake, they're going to send out another bud right where you cut that one, and you'll have another branch there in a couple of years. So
that's very good advice.
yes. So
Don't be afraid to prune.
don't be afraid to prune.
I needed to hear those words.
No. Just,
Here is chassanet.
yes, and I decided that I was going to make it into a ground cover. It wasn't naturally a ground cover, but we pinned it down. What I use as pins, I take coat hangers
Oh.
and I cut them in half, and I'm able to get 2 long pins out of a coat hanger. And these branches are very springy, so the regular pins, the branches will pull them out.
Right.
But with a coat hanger, I can sink them 6 inches, and so or 4 or 5 inches, and so it works well. And then what I do is periodically I cut the vertical shoots off.
That's a great tip. I've never thought about using coat hangers in that application. And everybody, this Camellia sasanqua chansonet.
Bunnies from the pound that are generally left there because people have been evicted from their apartment, and the sheriff goes and the bunny is still there, the people are long gone. So we have 2 residents here now. We have peppercorn and butter,
Oh,
and they have a wonderful life in here.
hi, you guys.
They have 3 condos.
Are you Butter?
That's butter.
Hi.
And the children love to come, and we have a little sign here as to what the children can feed. You'll nip your finger.
Oh, that's okay. I will take a bunny nip. Yeah.
And-
Oh, you're so precious.
And we have 2 we have one that lives inside, and she lives inside because she doesn't play well with others.
Oh.
Is Kristen Lipka and Weeping Kusa. This is almost 30 years old,
That's as tall
and
as
that's
it
and it's
is.
never bloomed.
Okay. There you have it.
It's a variegated weeper.
Oh, so it's worth it for the variegation.
Exactly.
It doesn't need to bloom.
No. It's the way I feel about wolf eyes.
Right.
You know, my wolf eyes doesn't do anything on the blooms, but hey, foliage is wonderful. 4,000 pots.
4,000 pot. Were they like 4-inch squares?
Yeah, I got them from, we get them from Classic Ground Covers.
Oh, yep. We visited Classic Ground Covers during our IPPS meeting in October. Love Classic Ground Covers.
And so,
It is the best grass alternative. It feels good. You can walk on it. You don't have to mow it.
green 12 months out of the year.
Exactly.
Our dogs run and do their business on it.
I love it. Well, and it's too shady here for your Tiff Bermuda.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know,
Most of
this
the dogs
is,
will pick it up anyway.
yeah, this is the best alternative. I mean, I drove past a million houses that were getting mowed with, you know, what, probably rye at this time of year or fescue.
And I tell people, I said, yes, it is an investment. But once you have made the investment, my gosh, it's done.
It's done.
It's done.
That's amazing how many leaves there are.
See the white oak?
Uh-huh. And are those squirrel nests?
Probably.
It's a process dealing with all these big deciduous trees. Okay, this is crazy that Akabono is blooming already. And look at how many flowers you have.
And look how many leaves are still on it.
Yeah, that's insane. Everybody, this is a plant I covet that dies very quickly on my property. I do fine with the larger forms.
Yeah, this is much more temperamental.
So cool though. And if you're not familiar, here's the name: Edgeworthia pepperifera, accabono, or red dragon. They're synonymous in the trade. Wow. And of course, here is Edgeworthia chrysantha, and this is Gold Rush. So I like this cultivar because it doesn't get as big as Snow Cream.
Yeah.
And all over Charlotte, I was admiring it today as it's getting the fall color. That butter yellow really shows up. But of course, the real reason are the buds that will open, January, February. Fragrant balls of sunshine. Okay.
You really can't see much now, but if you were to buy a Acer palmatum Pevy starfish, you would get a tree that has very unusual leaves, and then when you get the new growth on Pevy starfish, and it has vigorous new growth, the new growth looks absolutely nothing like the leaves below it. So your inclination is, oh my gosh, it's reverting. And your temptation is, oh, I better cut this off, or what am I going to have? And it's the nature of the tree. Next year, all of this will look like the leaves down here.
And so wait, is this all 1 year's growth? Because look at how big the internodes are here, and then here the internodes are so tight.
Yeah, see, and that part I don't know.
That's a really interesting, like spring and summer growth, maybe?
Yeah, and it may be because many of the maples get that August spurt.
Yep.
And that could very well be. This is a new tree for me. I got this just a couple of months ago. I discovered a nursery in Shelby, North Carolina, that I'm very fond of, called Klein's.
I looked it up after you told me.
And I bought all three of these maples there, and
the pots are gorgeous.
And the prices are reasonable.
And look, it matches your Ukraine. Yep. The maple that started it all.
The reason we have MAPLEWALK today is this red dragon Japanese maple.
And this looks like it's seen some damage.
It's had a rough time. This tree was a gift to my wife as a housewarming present when we moved in from her boss. And we didn't know Japanese maples from red maples at that point. But we got it, and we put it on this point, and bless its heart, as those of us in the South say, there was a pine tree that was right back there. There's still a stone.
Oh, yes.
And during the winter, it would shed limbs, and it would just tear this poor tree up. Eventually, we wised up and had a tree company with a crane come and literally lift that tree out, and the neighborhood kids were fascinated to see the crane lift that pine tree.
I bet they were.
But over the years, I have pruned it to make it interesting, even though it's only got one side, and it's struggling. But trees want to survive. You know, they're tough, and I'm going to keep it as long as it wants to be here. Now, we bought another red dragon that's sitting up there, knowing that one day it may not be here. But I'm not going to give up on it. And
it's the tree that started it all.
Is Cornus controversa.
Oh, yes.
The giant dogwood.
Yes.
And so this has an interesting story in that about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, the city announced that they were going to dig up this whole part of our yard. They had to relay some storm drain, and they came up 30 feet into the property. We dug up the Cornus controversa, and it went to camp for 18 months. And there is a guy here in Charlotte that will babysit your trees.
Oh my God.
He has a huge tree spade. He'll take it. And so he dug it up. And once it was all completed, he brought it back. The reason it stayed so long is the city kept delaying the project. They kept saying, well, it's going to be here. And we got it out of the ground, and then they delayed it for a whole year after that. But when he brought it back, he said, in all the trees I've ever dug up, especially dogwoods, which don't transplant well, he said, this thing's been so happy, it had grown a foot while he had it. So it was happy, and it's done great since it's been back, and it's bloomed every year.
So this is blooming on purpose?
Yes, this is what it does. It does this every year.
Okay, so this is Rhododendron muscari by Nunnenkamp. Isn't that amazing? It's such a sweet flower.
Sweet little flower.
Yeah.
Laura.
Lady Laura! Oh my gosh. That is fabulous. And all the buds about to open.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. This is Governor Nunnenkamp here.
Oh yeah, a great viral induced variegation.
So a lot of camellias, primarily the
I
cereals.
love this wall. I garden so I don't choke people.
That's my favorite.
Yes. Trespassers will be composted.
Lib had the one at the bottom main. It's plants, it's not hoarding.
Exactly. There is no such thing as hoarding plants. Unless they're in pots. David, this is what we need to do to the ugly white shed at the Carolina Garden House. We just need to cover it up with cute gardening signs. That's the easiest solution.
Pringlei.
This is Cornus pringlei. And
It was spectacular this year.
if you got this between 2008 and 2014 from Camellia Forest, then I propagated it.
I did. Well, I say that.
But they've been growing it for a long time.
Gotten into this, and because people are fascinated by it, and so
I have this adjacent to my driveway, and it's quite vigorous.
yeah,
And I can't believe it's blooming again. It's usually spring
Yeah.
bloomer.
see it. I swear I don't see it in the nurseries, and it's a great holly.
This is Liberty holly, everybody. And is there anything that says Christmas more than this?
I mean, my God.
It is absolutely spectacular. The serrated leaves, the incredible fruit development, and it's the perfect screen. You don't see your neighbor at all through this, and that's just one plant, right? Two plants. Yeah, I agree. Liberty needs to be circulated more in the trade.
Everyone, I surely hope you enjoyed part 2 of the tour of MAPLEWalk. MAPLEWalk Garden is open 365 days a year, open to the public from sunrise to sundown every day. No charge. We'd love to see you. The address in Charlotte is 4255 Kingswood Road, Charlotte, North Carolina.
And they can find you online.
Online at maplewalkgarden.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook.
So be sure to follow and subscribe. And I definitely recommend planning a visit here. I can't wait to come back.
It'll be fun.
And I've got to bring David Sabio, who I've done a tour of his maple collection, and everybody on YouTube went nuts. I've got to bring David Sabio. Watching the two of you together in this garden will be the funniest thing ever.
That'll be good.
Well, thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I hope you will be inspired by this incredible collection.